Uncuckables.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Uncuckables for another week. I'm Tim Wilms, Editor-in-Chief at the Unshackled here in still lockdown Melbourne. Well, it's more East Berlin now with the Ring of Steel to keep us in this restricted area away from semi-free regional Victoria, which came in today, which is where Jarrad Searby is in Wodonga. Good to see you again.
Yeah, thank you, mate. Thanks for having us. Yeah, enjoying the freedoms that we're getting back to us slowly.
And David Hiscox, of course, is with me in still lockdown Melbourne.
Always a pleasure to be here, Tim. I was just saying to James before we started, it's always a little bit of cognitive dissonance for me because I recognise what's going on as tyranny, but just being told to stay home and just focus on my own stuff, I can do that. It's kind of what I do anyway. So the last few days have been beautiful weather down here in Melbourne, so I've been loving it.
And James Higgins, director of Rational Rise TV, well, you and Dave are on the same page with that regard, though where you are, you've still got some restrictions on you.
Oh, I think, yeah, we're all feeling some level of restrictions, I think, everywhere in the world, even if it's just the way that the economy's been affected, and we're going to see that unravel more and more. So I feel pretty blessed where I live to be relatively free to go about my business as usual, which was pretty parochial. I live a pretty parochial life, and I like it that way. But yeah, great to be back on the Uncuckables again with you fine gentlemen on this lovely evening.
And as always, we're both on the Uncuckables YouTube and DLive channel. And of course, the YouTube and DLive enhanced software Entropy, where you can interact with us, ask questions, send through a super chat. I couldn't think of a good poll, so, you know, I didn't care. But I'll put the link in both chats there. Of course, on DLive, you can also send lemons, ice creams, diamonds. Is it the Ninja Guinea or the Ninjet? The DLive cryptocurrency of choice.
China's weird, man.
Now, Jarrad, regional Victoria, the reason why Dan gave his blessing to give you semi-freedom today was because your 14-day rolling average new case numbers is sitting at 2.9, but that's still not good enough for New South Wales to let you in.
No, apparently not. So, yeah, I think all that really means is that less people are testing. So they fluctuate numbers as they please when people are testing. So, yeah, I think less people are testing in the country. Like David said, the weather's been beautiful, so there isn't too many symptoms of the flu at the moment. So I don't think there's as many people out there. So hopefully soon the border opens up and lets us across. They've opened the bubble back to 50K, so we can now cross for daily activities. But yeah, the inconvenience is still immense. So yeah, hopefully it opens soon.
When the walls of steels finally come down, whether that is when Gladys decides to take down the border or when Clive Palmer's High Court challenge succeeds, which is scheduled for the beginning of November, are you considering, you and your family, making the move just across the Murray permanently?
We actually are, mate. Funny you mentioned that. We actually are speaking about that. So, yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. But with the current climate that's in Victoria, we're opening a new gym at the moment, and yeah, we were originally looking at doing that in Victoria, but we've chosen to also do that in New South Wales. So, yeah, he's definitely done his job in driving small businesses out of the state, if that's what he intended to do. So, yeah.
And since regional Victoria is semi-free, while Melbourne still has the hard, I call it stage 3.9 lockdown, because, well, we still have the curfew, though it's at 9 p.m. now. So
much better.
You're allowed to go out for one of the 4 lawful reasons for 24 minutes before
What
the
a-
9 p.m.
One of
curfew.
Dan's reasons, aren't they?
Yeah.
I think Dan made them all up himself.
Yeah, because the
apparently,
chief health officer said, no, I didn't recommend it.
Nothing to
Victoria
do with it.
Police Chief Commissioner Shane Patton said, no, we weren't consulted.
Nothing to do with it.
And Dan said, oh, I actually can't recall where the idea came from.
It just popped to me one night. Like, he's gone rogue. They were Koshy's words. Now I don't like. Not a fan of Koshy. He's very left wing, very establishment. And when Koshy turns on you and says you've gone rogue, you know you're fucking gone off the dial. Pardon my language, but yeah, the fact that Koshy called him that says a lot.
Although you're allowed now out for 2 hours of exercise now.
Mainstream commentators, on Channel 7 and whatnot, I've been seeing real normies going, this is over the top. This is way too far.
Yeah, he's pushed it too far. Yeah, I think the government's throwing him
Yeah.
under the bus too, by the look of things. So, yeah, like Neil had an interesting view last night. Neil Erickson actually said he was going to vote for him. He said, so if your enemy's got shit stain on his t-shirt, why get rid of him? So let's just leave him there. So Neil's actually he's going out to campaign for him, I believe.
Okay, all right. I'm looking forward to hearing more about that rationale. That doesn't quite compute yet.
I saw
No.
on Twitter, former state Liberal MLC Inga Pulich said that she wants Dan Andrews to stay until 2022 because it will vaccinate Victorians against socialism for a generation.
Well, let's hope she's right. So.
Fight communism with communism. Brilliant plan.
Well, look at Poland. They don't want to go back ever to communism.
No, we can't blame them.
Given 3 generations, though, that's the problem, isn't it? It's the cycle. The problem with getting too attached to the idea of Daniel Andrews needing to go and we'll all be free. This lockdown, this agenda is being rolled out globally.
100%.
UK is probably going to go back into a full national lockdown soon.
Victoria,
absolutely.
The next wave of trying to normalize this level.
The Melbourne model, as I call it.
It'll linger for a long time, and then it'll spread into the other states as we get used to the idea of it being normal in Victoria.
Yeah. If we get used to the idea, yeah.
If they carry it on for years, then you just have to get used to the idea unless there's some kind of coup.
Or there's a vaccine.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of the plan.
That's another problem. Yeah.
It's a problem of its own, isn't it?
There's something I find intriguing. I got wised up to it listening to Computing Forever the other day, and it's something I haven't fully investigated, but the president of Belarus has basically said that the WHO bribed him to lock down his country, destroy the economy, basically do everything that's going on in Victoria but in Belarus, and they bribed him with nearly either nearly $1 billion or nearly $1 trillion. I think it was nearly $1 billion.
I did see that. Yeah, I see that article.
And so the indication here is
successfully bribed him or offered to bribe him
unsuccessfully, because there's now there seems to be an attempted color revolution going on in Belarus. So this is the intriguing thing. When we look at how every country across the world seems to be implementing the same policy, that's suspicious. And so here's a leader of a country which is currently undergoing obvious destabilization, basically saying, look, the WHO wanted me to do this. They offered me money. I said no, and now this is happening. Yeah. So that's a really, really interesting story to follow, I think.
Yep. Yeah, scuttling all the ships where the leader is not playing ball perfectly. And that's part of what's happening in America too, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's controlled demolition by the radical global left.
Yes. Yeah. It seemed like it's looked coordinated for this whole year, and now here's somebody basically sort of pointing us in the direction. Okay, this is what they're actually trying to make us do.
Going back to Melbourne's current restrictions, so as I was saying, you're allowed out now for 2 hours for exercise or social interaction with one other person. The mask mandate still applies all throughout Victoria. Daniel Andrews said today, I can't give a date on when the face covering mandate will be lifted. So those in regional Victoria still have to wear masks when they're outside. And pubs, restaurants, cafes allowed to open now. So hairdressers and beauty salons, but gyms aren't allowed to open in regional Victoria. You're allowed to have an outdoor gathering of 10, but for private visits to the home, you're only allowed to have one nominated household to form a bubble. That's one of those new buzzwords of
nominated
2020.
household.
Yeah, bubble. The other one is hub.
The bubble is another thing they want to normalize as they begin to introduce literal bubbles, capsules for people to live in, plastic bubbles for children to be educated in. We're already seeing this in some countries being implemented in schools and kindergartens. These little ISO booths, plastic ISO booths. So it's like living in quarantine, medical emergency conditions becoming normal. This is all part of the psychological development of the collapse, is to
Once they have us in them,
get us used to these sort of emergency conditions and normalize them for the young.
And once they have us in them bubbles, it'll be so easy for them to cut communications to them areas, whether it be, cell reception, internet. 100%. So if there happens to be some form of, military action or, whether it be bloody 5G technology or whatever other people want to believe, then people may not have the ability to reach the outside world and tell them because they'll be so isolated to that area with no communication. So it's a real concern, the fact that we're getting used to these lockdown areas. Yeah.
And this is something I should have mentioned previously when we talk about this sort of ways to be prepared for the future. But everyone who doesn't already own a high watt, at least UHF radio set, a decent quality one, get one and have it charged and available. And also, if you can invest in some more expensive radio equipment, there are frequencies that you can communicate long range on. That technically you need to have a license and all that sort of thing for, but it's worth investigating those sorts of old school radio communications options just in case the internet is coming for us in the future. But definitely get a little UHF radio, like a 5-watt thing that has a decent broadcast range.
Yeah, good advice. I concur.
You still in Melbourne have to stay within the 5-kilometre radius from your home, and Victoria Police announced on Tuesday, it wasn't Chief Wiggum who announced it, it was another deputy commissioner, that there's a new fine now for leaving a restricted area to try and get into regional Victoria, which is 4,957. And as I've titled the
they're
show,
always so specific, aren't they? Like,
because it's based on penalty units.
The 47
well,
cents, yeah.
we formulate these scientifically with science, You gotta trust science.
Supercomputer.
I implore anybody who receives one of these fines, do not pay them. Please look into your rights first. There is ways of getting these fines overturned. They are not legitimate, and if you object to them, they will be overturned. So it's $1 billion a year revenue that they're making off fines alone. So when we stop paying them blindly and start objecting to them and actually questioning these laws, we will see change in the system. So everybody go out, look up knowyourrights.com, AussieSpeedingFines.com, and find out how to appeal these bloody illegal fines. Yeah, they can't.
Yeah. So Victoria Police said that they were reinforcing the Ring of Steel around Metro Melbourne, and said even if you do get past a checkpoint, local police in rural and regional areas will be able to use number plate recognition to find unauthorised people in regional Victoria and send you back to Melbourne and fine you that amount. But apparently the Ring of Steel, it can't function when it rains like it did this morning. This is from 3AW, why thousands of cars are passing through the Ring of Steel unchecked. And this was reported to 3AW Breakfast from a checkpoint at Little River on the way to Geelong. It's thousands and thousands of cars and trucks are going through completely unchecked, and there it is there. and it says here that Sunrise reporter Nathan Templeton, who was at the roadblock, confirmed that when the rain gets too heavy, police stop checking vehicles. So apparently police states can't function when it's wet.
Yeah.
So if you want to do a escape from Melbourne kind of thing, do it when it's raining. But yeah, like you were just mentioning in the previous story, though, like the regional police are going to sort of keep tabs on everybody. There's no need for Skynet. Like you've just got an intel operation like Victoria wide, and the intimidation factor of like the $5,000 fine. Like a lot of good people will be intimidated. That a lot of people aren't gonna. Unfortunately, a lot of people aren't gonna like go to know your rights. So for the people in charge, like that's their thinking. They're wanting to intimidate the majority just to stay put. It's going to be hard.
All we need, if 1% of people, 1% is all we need to backlog the courts and create enough for them to not be able to keep up with it. So 1% of people send in these objection forms, and all of a sudden the courts will be overflooded with them, and they will fall. They will lose their revenue stream, and it will cause a real catastrophe. People like me, I sent seven fines off yesterday for myself and other people, objections to fines. And when people like me do it, they push them through because there's not many people doing it. So to lose a few dollars here and there is no major concern. So once we all start to do it, and we all start to, because most of the road rules have, they haven't got proclamation certificate. The road rules were never enacted by law. So they're guidelines that we really don't have to follow.
I do know these. I've heard of a lot of these theories.
Well, they work. They actually work. So the practice, the proof is in the pudding. So fines are dropped all the time.
We'll watch this. We have to watch this space in regard to the lockdown fines. A lot of fines 100%. Have been issued for those breaching curfew. A lot of them are cigarette smokers who find out that they're out of a pack, and so go to the servo after curfew and then get busted and fined by Victoria Police. But
doesn't the Victorian government care about the addicts?
That's only fair. I think heroin.
Only the heroin.
Yeah. If you cigarettes are yucky, but heroin is fine, because the Richmond heroin injecting room was open until 9 p.m. when we had the 8 p.m. curfew. So you could break curfew to go and inject heroin at North Richmond because that was seeking medical care.
If you really wanted a cigarette, maybe you could go to the injecting room. Say you're there to get heroin, but scab a cigarette off somebody. I'm pretty sure you could do it.
No, you're not allowed to
scabbing a cigarette at the heroin injecting room. They'll be trying to take yours.
You're not allowed to smoke there. I think back in the day when Neil was on Facebook and was able to post videos that went viral, I think he went to the Richmond heroin injecting room and tried to smoke outside.
Of course he did.
But back to
man knows no borders.
Yeah. Back to the curfew. It's being challenged in the Supreme Court of Victoria. One of the Supreme Court justices, Tim Guineen, wants a speedy decision on it. Is being launched by restaurant owner Michelle Leo, who is a member of the Liberal Party, but that doesn't discredit her challenge because she's a restaurant owner on the Mornington Peninsula, which is also still under stage 3.9 lockdown because, of course, this curfew's been put for so-called medical reasons, but it's being revealed through the unraveling of Daniel Andrews' lies that that's not the case. So she has a very good chance there.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, well, one of the top QCs in Melbourne came out only last week and said that the lockdown was illegal. Well, not legitimate because of the
curfew was.
The curfew, the curfew. So, one of the top QCs in Victoria or in Melbourne stated that people shouldn't abide by it. So,
Well,
Yeah.
I think with the amount of criticism that the Victorian government is getting from everyone, including other state governments in Australia, from mainstream media, from all alternative media, from
Yeah,
all
the
over the
federal government
globe,
itself.
it's pretty clear that at some point in the future, when this government is broken up, there's going to be an investigation. There's going to be legal ramifications, and people looking into it. You know, there'll have to be. There'll have to be an inquisition later of some kind to find out how did this come to pass, because it's clearly a breach of human rights. It's
It's not
clearly
about human rights. It's about human life. That's what Daniel Andrews has said. The
yeah.
only thing that matters is defeating this virus to him.
Right. Well, you know, Dan Andrews, you're fired. Maybe that should be the response from the people. And you know, so I think it's fair and sound advice to tell people that if they cop a fine or find themselves under any kind of legal threat to do with the lockdowns, that, you know, the best thing is just hunker down and stay safe for now, and just delay and hold off and just wait and see, because there's going to be a lot of people to process through the system. They're not going to come after you in a hurry. And you do need to have time to speak to lawyers and look into your rights and get advice from people. So don't be in a hurry to pay fines, and don't expect that they're going to chase you down too quickly for these things. They may even be found universally to be illegal and overturned for everyone.
Well, you have the
100%.
lefty legal centres in Melbourne, the Fitzroy Legal Centre and the Flemington and Kensington Legal Centre, assisting people in contesting fines. A lot of their clientele are migrants, new arrivals who don't speak English. When you have those sort of lefty legal outfits, and now Liberty Victoria is starting to arc up about the surveillance and the new detention bill, Daniel Andrews and his Labor government, they become more and more isolated. Well, as we've seen from Dan Andrews, he doesn't care what anyone thinks. He first said he didn't care what other politicians thought, but now it's getting to the stage where he doesn't really acknowledge what other experts say, epidemiologists or anything.
Definitely not the people. What are we, a democracy?
Yeah. This is not about democracy. This is about me being Superman and defeating this virus and gaining power.
For the common good, yes.
Very good.
And now there was a, what do you call it, a satirical mashup in The Spectator by James McPherson, which I'm going to get you to read out, Dave, because I'm going to read out your satire next about the new detention bill. But have you got it in front of you?
Yeah, I do.
All right,
Okay.
I've got it on the screen.
Okay, yeah, so this is from The Spectator Australia. If you don't want to be kicked in the head, don't put your head under a jackboot. It's not only selfish, it's stupid. I love the fact that they've actually got here in bold and italics, Drongo alert. Oh, and also larger writing, Drongo alert, what follows is satire.
Well,
So
they
can't be accused of publishing poorly labelled satire.
But as I said, it's more of a mashup, which is sort of what, well, XYZ isn't, well, it's become a mashup, XYZ satire, but normally it predicts the future.
I have started to blend satire with real news, kind of like, you know, how like the Matrix bleeds out into real life.
Yeah.
But if, you know, because we live in clown world now, if you're reporting with any honesty, it's satirical and hilarious. You know, reality is weirder and funnier than any fake news we could make up.
Yeah, exactly. which is why I'm basically making up news these days, because I know it's going to be true in a month. Okay, so Victorian strongman Daniel Andrews yesterday dismissed anger over the state's harsh lockdown as a small number of selfish and stupid citizens made a fuss over human rights. Dictator Dan was responding to questions about heavy-handed police tactics used to enforce rules to restrict the spread of COVID-19. All of this can be avoided if people don't protest, because protest is not only selfish, it's stupid, he said. Anyway, I've got to sound more retarded. In fact, he emphasized at how much can be avoided if people stop insisting on their personal freedoms. Because insisting on human rights is not only selfish, it's stupid.
Actually, that voice is actually incomprehensible. You're going to have to a more comprehensible, stupid voice.
No, I caught it.
Yeah. He pointed to successful dictatorships in North Korea and China as examples of what could be achieved when people keep quiet and did as they were told. I swear, like we're just setting like between XYZ and the Babylon Bee, like everybody's like just getting on the bandwagon, and this is good though. What matters is human life, not human. What matters is human life, not human rights, he said, without explaining what sort of life one was expected to live when working or even leaving your front door had been made criminal offence. When asked about police handcuffing and arresting a pregnant woman over a Facebook post, Dictator Dan said he had not seen the footage. I've been too focused on the supercomputer modelling, he said, but everyone understands you have to crack a few eggs to make an omelette. Let me be very clear, all of this can be avoided if people don't object to anything we are doing, because objecting, especially on Facebook, where everyone can see it, is selfish. Objecting is stupid, and objecting is dangerous. No objection, regardless of what rules we impose, is safe or responsible at this time, or at any time in the foreseeable future, which I mean ever. Yeah, he also said he did not want.
It's very believable. The voice, the Dan Andrews, not your impersonation.
I feel
but
that you're trying to impersonate Matty impersonating Dan Andrews.
Yeah, something like that seems like what it is. Yeah,
I am. Yeah, you called it. You called it, Tim.
Yeah, but the writing there is it's very believable. A couple of things.
They've basically taken mashups of what he said.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, they've taken bits of what he said and just put it all together. Like Tim said, it's a mashup. It's great.
It goes to show how people like Dan Andrews, that class of politician, they only speak rhetoric. Everything they say is just this vacuous stream of, moralizing that actually has no grounding in logic or reason whatsoever, and they just use it to manipulate people and assert their authority falsely. Anyway, sorry, read on.
It keeps going. Actually, it's my one criticism of this satire. Like, if you're going to do satire, like it's got to be short. Like
Babylon
the
Bee
best satire is about 300 words. 300 words.
So we is on a roll here.
Yeah. Okay, so where are we? Let me know if you guys want me to stop. But
no objection. You're up to.
Okay. No objection. Okay. He said he did not want to comment directly on reports that a man had been run over by a police car and then kicked in the head while he was on the ground, adding he had not seen the footage. Again, I can't recall. Yeah.
For a surveillance state, it's amazing how slow it is to process all that footage and get it up to the supreme leader.
Yeah, you basically just hit the nail right on the head there. That's the point, isn't it? Yeah.
They'll see the footage they want to see. They'll see the footage they want to see,
exactly.
And they'll use it against you. They won't see the footage that makes them look bad.
Yeah, basically, he's lying. Yeah. So you'll be able to tell it's Daniel Andrews because I'm using the retard voice today. But I can safely say that none of these incidents will occur if comrades stay locked up in their homes. And if you don't want to be kicked in the head, don't put your head under a jackboot. It's not complicated. Meanwhile, an exasperated senior police officer blasted selfish people who keep going on and on about the civil rights like it's their, right. Assistant Commissioner Cornelius Wiggum, they've been watching the XYZ.
They forgot to include the donuts.
Said people had nothing to fear from police as long as they stayed in their homes, wore masks, and didn't criticise the government. He denied that the police force had been politicised under Dictator Dan. Okay, so I have to sound fat now. Okay. I think you do the fat voice better, actually, Tim.
Do you want me to do it?
Yeah, can you do the fat voice?
Larcher criticised the dear leader of batshit crazy vomiting dogs returning to their tinfoil hats.
He said, critics of Dictator Dan's response.
That's good.
Critics of Dictator Dan's response to the coronavirus have pointed out that only Wuhan had experienced tighter restrictions than Melbourne. How did you get that? Dictator Dan told reporters. I hate it when China out-Chinas me. That's good. He continued to insist that he did not recall who was responsible for suggesting the 8 p.m. curfew, which has upset so many Victorians. Decisions are made by groups of experts, and I can't necessarily pinpoint for you the exact moment that was suggested. This is one of the beauties of the socialist collective. That's spot on there. This writer is basically pointing out this is the thing about government these days. Like everything is done by committee. So you can't blame an individual for a decision, you blame a committee. Things are voted on by majorities, so you can't blame a person for putting through law, because you blame, like, you look at the majority, and like you look at a law that exists that was put in 5 years ago, 10 years ago. The people who voted that through, a lot of them aren't even there anymore. So you can't even go to the government and say, why did you put this law through? Like, so it actually, there's a disconnect between like the terrible decisions that people make and the horrible effect it has on people's lives and them. Like, people aren't held personally responsible for them. We can't necessarily just go and say, hey, why did you do this? Because they're not there anymore.
But this is the satanic hierarchy of democracy, Dave. You know, like it's the transference of sin from the elite down to the everyday people, because the people who end up paying for these errors and these inefficiencies of this massive swelling bureaucracy are the workers, the taxpayers, you know, the people who are out there actually making the world turn. They end up paying, you know, we end up paying a great deal more in income tax and property owning tax, and then covert tax by inflation is killing us, you know, and has made our generation unable to buy land. So yeah, you know, it's a very, very old satanic system of taking all of that responsibility away from the people who are actually doing the evil or being reckless, and making others pay for it, making them the scapegoats and driving them off the cliff.
That's it. Tim, what's going on with your sound?
Yeah, I've lost Tim.
Yeah, I can hear that.
Are you having the same issues as the other day? Okay, well, while Tim's sorting that out, like, just building on what you were saying, James, if anybody's read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, basically the most evil creatures in the whole galaxy in that Hitchhiker's universe, I think it's Vogons, I think that's what they're called. They're basically these large, obese, ugly, smelly, boring creatures who are overly bureaucratic. And the central plot of the story is that, like, these guys, they want to blow up planet Earth to make way for a superhighway. And so like it just highlights the point that evil, like the worst kind of evil, is bureaucratic evil. We had this image.
It's demonic because I think in the same way that the whole system of the corporation, you know, these artificial legal entities that become a literal scapegoat for liability, you know, the whole point of them is for that the directors and the people making the decisions in a company don't take on any personal liability if they have a company structure in which to transfer that liability. So you've got this incorporated being, and, you know, incorporated literally means to put into a body, but it has no real body. It's just, it exists in the ether of paperwork and bureaucracy. And you know, I think there's something kind of demonic in that when you have an entity that you can transfer sin and guilt and accountability into, that isn't actually a real human being and can't actually be truly punished.
Well,
There's
it has
weird.
It has no real legitimacy either. So the way they've set up the system, you know, they've set it up illegitimately from the start. So, yeah, the fact that they're forcing this evil on us with no right to do so is a true crime. Yeah.
That's really interesting, James. You're basically building on what Maddie's been talking about the last couple of weeks as well. Like, do you think that corporations, like, should be illegal? Like, it should be illegal to, like, you should not be allowed to, like, form a corporation?
Yeah, I think we should work our way in that direction. I think we should get back to human beings being genuinely accountable for their actions. And so we can come up with other legal structures or ways to ensure that accountability is measured so that, people aren't disproportionately punished or harmed, for things they do within a company. There'd have to be other systems in place to replace it, but I do think we should work towards getting rid of the corporate legal structure, because I think a great deal of evil is enabled in the world through that, and it is the dark side of the coin. We've got this sort of tyrannical communism on one side, and then you've got tyrannical capitalism on the other side, which is this corporatocracy, these corporations who have no soul. They only have a profit motive. And the numbers are very clearly show that killing people is very profitable. Genocide is very profitable. Transforming a nation into a bunch of obese sugar slaves is very, very profitable. So when you've got an entity who exists only to make profit and has no conscience and has no soul, it will be filled with evil deeds eventually if it gets big enough. And that's what all of the corporations are becoming. They're all becoming evil. It doesn't mean that all the work that they're doing is evil, or that the workers who are in that system are evil, but the structure itself is a Tower of Babel.
Very interesting. I've never heard that point of view. That's a very interesting point of view. Yeah, I'll look into that more.
I find it really interesting because like what we're talking about here is we're not against the free market either. Like we're talking about freeing up the free market.
Well, that's it. Corporations are an affront to the free market. They're putting these sort of these non-existent beings into a structure that it harms the workers, and it harms everyone except the absolute elite at the top, basically.
Yeah, like you said, accountability. The people in control, while the workers are still accountable for their job, the people who are making all the profit, they can distance themselves from that. So yeah, very, very interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
Tim, how's your sound going? You're back.
I've switched to the webcam microphone.
Gotcha.
I don't know why on Wilms front trad Tasman talk my proper microphone works perfectly, but for the past two Uncuckables it's cut out. So strange.
We'll blame the usual suspects, won't we?
Yeah. Shall we keep going? We've still got a bit of this article to go.
I've got to get back to the retard voice, don't I?
Yeah. Let me bring it back up.
We've just been we've just been expanding on this excellent satirist. Actually, he's lampooning how democracy helps politicians avoid responsibility and accountability. So back to Daniel Andrews. But I think it's fair to say that all of this remembering can be avoided if people don't keep going on about accountability, he said. It's selfish and it's stupid. And the fuss over recalling Parliament could also be avoided if people stop insisting on checks and balances to my power. I actually spat. This is too selfish and stupid. Meanwhile, Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk, speaking after internal polling, confirmed that enough people supported the border closure for her to win the upcoming election. Said she would be prepared to lose the upcoming election before opening the border. She might be selfish, but she's not stupid. There we go. So good work, Spectator, and nice work, James McPherson. I'm impressed.
It sounds like that Dan, in his decision-making room, I wouldn't call it a cabinet, like is the traditional Westminster government decision-making body, that there's this person who comes into the room and just yells out, curfew, masks, 5 kilometre limit. And he's like, yeah, whoever that voice was sounds like a good idea.
They've got the how BuzzFeed choose their headlines. Like they've got the thing and they throw it over the back of their head and whatever it sticks on. That's their policy.
But going to Anastasia Palaszczuk, she said on Monday she'd be prepared to lose the election if it meant closing the border to keep Queenslanders safe. And when she said that, I was sort of like, because like when has a politician ever meant something like that?
Well, yeah, they're now for internal borders, but they're still for complete open borders for the rest of Australia, aren't they?
I just can't wait till the rhetoric gets like when people just get so shell shocked by all the changes ahead that it eventually gets to the point where the Queensland Premier will say stuff like we're just going to keep that fence up to keep those dirty Welshmen, those southern Welshmen out, like just the racial bigotry by state. If you're on the whole state of origin fever will just go into full civil war mode. That'll be interesting to watch.
she's
like I've quite frankly, the South Australians are the scum of the earth. So like I'm all for it. Yeah. This is before coronavirus.
Yeah.
She's tried to claim, Anastasia Palaszczuk, that it's not her decision about who's granted an exemption. It's up to the Chief Health Officer, Dr. Jeanette Young. So she's passed the buck, and for some reason,
they always. Yeah, and notice how Daniel Andrews was like always saying, "Oh, these are the directions of the Chief Health Officer."
Dr. Brett Sutton hasn't taken the buck. He said, "No, this wasn't my decision." While Dr. Jeanette Young, she's taken the buck and said, "Yes, I base my decisions about who brings in money to the state." Whether that was her assessment based on letting in Tom Hanks again, and also
money is health. State money is public health. This is the Orwellian doublethink we have to get used to now.
And the consequence of this is today a Gold Coast man was charged with making death threats to the Queensland Premier and Chief Health Officer now. She needs her own security detail now, the Chief Health Officer. Police searched a home at Nerang on Wednesday night and arrested and charged a 43-year-old man. He has been charged with one count of using a carriage service to make a threat to kill. He is not held in custody but will be issued with a notice to appear in Southport Magistrates Court on October 7th.
Yeah, don't do stuff like that, guys. Don't threaten people online. It's just stupid. It doesn't help in any way, and it's just going to get your ass thrown in jail. It's not real action. It's little boy stuff, and it's stupid. So don't do it. It's selfish and it's stupid, right?
Yeah, and people shouldn't do it.
And people shouldn't do it.
Yeah, you got to use slogans. You got to use.
Yeah, sorry.
You're making an argument, James.
What
even is this?
I think that last bit really drove it home.
It's the current year, James. You can't use arguments.
Of course, these mandatory quarantine orders by travelling within Australia. Quarantining is actually a federal government power under the Constitution, but for some reason Scott Morrison has just let these premiers put up the hard borders and have a permit system. And this shows basically how much of a cuck ScoMo has been with the state premiers until this point. Because he's been banned from entering Queensland unless he does 14 days quarantine at a hotel. So he's the Australian Prime Minister and can't travel around the nation freely.
It's bullshit. It's there's something not right.
Signals of subservience to higher powers, perhaps, is what we're seeing here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. He's got controlled opposition written all over him. He's got either controlled opposition or cuck written all over him.
Or both.
And because
that's a difference.
Today he's actually been firm with the states for the first time in a long time. He said we're increasing the quota of Australians who are allowed to come back. I don't care what the states think. It's my decision. They can organise the hotel quarantine. Because don't forget, under the Federal Biosecurity Act, it's illegal to leave Australia, and at the moment, if you're an Australian overseas, you have to be on a waiting list to get back into your own country.
Yeah,
If you
maybe
can
just-
get a flight.
Maybe just stay where you are.
I wonder how many of these Australians are actually Australians too. You know?
Yeah.
They don't include that in the statistics.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you diddle with definitions, right? When you give new meanings to words, then you can rewrite history however you want.
Well, they're not letting Australians in, but they're just about to open the gates for all the international uni students to come back to prop up the revenue. So,
Well,
it's funny that the ethnics get, the immigrants get more to come over, more rights than we do. So they're letting them in to prop up the economy. In the meantime, they're locking the Aussies out. So it's,
but China is now coronavirus.
When was the last time they really served the people?
They had
What was that, sorry?
China is now coronavirus free. They had that big pool party in Wuhan without masks and without social distancing, where their half-naked bodies were rubbing up against each other. So see, it's safe now in China.
Thank goodness for that, because the only other industry which seems to have a long-term future in Australia, there's construction and there's the university sector. They seem to be like how the government wants to make its money.
Although ANU, they announced some layoffs recently. That follows Melbourne University. So some good some good job redundancies. There'll be less Marxists to brainwash the next generation and to appear on the ABC and to pollute academic journals.
Oh, were they literally having a cleansing of Marxism from the uni? Is that what was happening?
Well,
that.
Basically, the people who advocated for the shutdown are now suffering the consequences of their own lobbying.
Oh, right, I see. Yeah, but I'd be interested to know the ones who got laid off from ANU. I'd be interested to know which departments they're in, because it's probably less likely to be these new social justice departments that have emerged, right? These new critical theory, cultural Marxism courses. I bet you their heads haven't rolled. It'll be maybe classical arts professors, things like that. Who knows?
Constitutional law.
Yeah. Biology.
English.
What's this constitution?
Biology is white supremacy.
Jarrad, what's this constitution?
English is racism.
Did you hear that actually apparently English is supposed to spread coronavirus less than other languages?
Of course it is.
It appeared in the Forbes. Apparently some study has been done. It's amazing.
Yeah.
That gag would have worked much better on the Germans, but they're already completely cucked, so it wasn't needed.
Because German is a very aggressive language, so obviously
it's a phlegmy dialect.
Spreads more droplets when you're speaking it.
Arabic's up there.
Yeah.
A lot of hucks in that. Yeah.
It literally sounds like you're spitting when you say that.
Yeah. Man.
Hebrew possibly takes the cake. Actually,
yeah,
now that I think about
it. Yeah.
Maybe that's why Israel's experiencing a second wave.
Well, isn't that is it true that there's actually a town in Israel called?
That's a lot of H's.
I thought it was in Palestine.
What?
I thought that country was in Palestine.
Palestine is it's a region. It's not a country.
Yeah, be careful who you say that to.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just.
I like to think of it as a Roman province, personally.
It's basically just a terrorist group started by Yasser Arafat, but I'll leave that one alone.
We've got a question here on entropy. Make sure if you want to participate and interact with us, you join on entropy. This question is to Dave from Mike Hill. Well, this is what you'd call a Dorothy Dixer free quick question. How much have you enjoyed the news of university and mainstream media job cuts?
I love it. Basically, one of the main reasons I actually started XYZ was I figured if I can do this stuff in my downtime, it'll reduce you know, it'll be competing with mainstream media. So every time a journalist loses their job, I dance a little jig. I'm pretty happy. They should learn to code.
Well, apparently, and fingers crossed, that the project will be getting a haircut at the end of the year, because Channel 10 has been through two lots of job cuts, but because the project is made by an external company, Roving Enterprises, run by Rove McManus, he's been instructed with giving the show a haircut. Because what is it, Lisa Wilkinson, she's paid $2 million to host Sunday nights once a week.
And she can't take a pay cut, surely not. That would be sexist.
Even though she's earning
and they're not going to get rid of their poster boy Waleed, are they?
No, never. That'd be racist. That'd be like another Holocaust if you do that.
Although
you can be sure his uproar would be Holocaust level.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like, there's a reason like everybody's afraid of offending Muslims. It's just...
Oh, Victoria Police aren't afraid of offending Muslims anymore. They've cracked down on Muslims going for coordinated walks in Dandenong and Broadmeadows.
That sounds like the kind of thing that would escalate.
Oh no, that hasn't bothered them now. Victoria Police they've been happy to escalate the agitation in those areas.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it'll be reciprocal. You know, like the police have been, I think, wise in a way to recoil from going into these converged, ethnically homogenous neighborhoods.
Oh, not anymore.
Because the guys tend to stand together in those groups, you know, and tend to have each other's backs, and you can understand why. It's tribalism, but it's you can understand why.
Hopefully that spreads across society, and we can all get together and do the same thing. You know, the fact that we are so divided in this country is something that we need to turn around. You know, we all need to get
federation
together.
Is key.
Voluntary regardless
federation.
of race, religion. You know, at this point, race and religion is irrelevant. We're all just people, and we're all in the same boat. We're all getting persecuted by our government. So we really do need to all stand together, you know, whether it be Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, you know, who cares? It's all about people, helping people at the moment.
Well, we had you could call him a whistleblower. He quit his job in the Victorian Treasury, Sanjeev Sabalok. He said I won't read out the full Financial Review article. Last week I quit my job as an economist in the Victorian Department of Finance and Treasury. So I would be free to speak out against the state's management of the COVID-19 infection. I've made a number of criticisms on of the state government on social media. The head of human relations at Treasury asked me to remove them. I considered deleting the few direct criticisms, but they wanted all indirect criticisms removed too. I resigned on the same day. It's the only honourable course for a free citizen of Australia. I never dreamed I would see some of the tactics being used to defend Australia's health. The pandemic policy is being pursued in Australia, particularly in Victoria, the most heavy-handed possible, a sledgehammer to kill swarm of flies. These policies are having a hugely adverse economic, social and health effects, with the poorer sections of the community that don't have the ability to work from home suffering the most. Australia is signalling to the world that it is closed for business and doesn't care for human freedoms. This will dampen business investment, but also impact future skilled migration, the education industry and tourism. The whole thing hinges on the scare created by politicians and health professionals. For instance, Victoria's Chief Health Officer Brett Sutton claims that this is the greatest public health challenge since the Spanish flu. Well, given how incompetent we've discovered the Victorian government is, of course it's the greatest public health challenge.
Yeah, and that's a brave man. That's a man that had convictions and stood by him. So much respect to him.
God bless that guy.
If some of the police would start to do the same thing, and that's an honourable man that he was acting in honour. And if the police would act honourable and stand by their convictions, then we would start to see some progress. You know, not everybody in these positions are bad. You know, and he proves that. So a lot of people are there trying to do the right thing, and they're thrust into this situation where they feel they have no power. But his power is in standing by his convictions. So take my hat off to him.
Big time. And it's those brave folks who step out of these positions of authority to be truthful in this way, especially, as you say, when cops start doing it out of conscience. They're going to be men that we really turn to and rely on in our community, because we're going to go, great, you've got the skills and the integrity to be a real leader.
And their testimony can make an impact on the greater society, and maybe wake some of these people that are manipulated by this mainstream news to the real thing. So
when
the people on the 100%, when the people on the inside
here,
come to the outside, other people start to wake. So
big time.
Although we hope he's kept safe, because, as is before the Victorian Parliament today, new detention powers for those who are high risk of spreading the coronavirus. And this is where I'm going to read out XYZ satire mashup, which I'll go to now. Dictator Dan plans to put Victorians in camps. XYZ satire always predicts the future. Yes, that's true, because this was the 2nd of August. Daniel Andrews to move Victorians from prison camps to death camps.
Come on, Tim, keep a straight face, buddy.
Well, I'm not an actor, so I don't have the ability to keep a straight face.
You just did it fine just then. Read on.
So this is from news.com.au. Victoria fights... The Andrews Labor government fights for power to detain high-risk COVID-19 spreaders. The Victorian government will debate sweeping powers that would allow police to detain anyone they believe was high risk of spreading coronavirus. The Victorian government is hoping to push through... I've just read that bit. The powers would be applied to those who health authorities believe would negligently spread the deadly virus as Victoria works to bring its coronavirus outbreak under control. We had 20 new cases today. The rule seen by The Age would be a 6-month extension of the ones made in April, taking the detaining powers to March next year. XYZ has exclusive footage of the debate in Victoria's Parliament. Should I play this?
Oh, you don't need to play the whole thing. Basically, if you've seen Revenge of the Sith...
I better not play it, we'll get done for copyright.
Basically, it's a bit where Emperor Palpatine gets awarded emergency powers and promises that he'll let them go as soon as the crisis is over.
Anyone deemed high risk by health authorities could be forcibly detained under the extension of powers, including conspiracy theorists or anti-lockdown protesters who refuse to isolate. Including so-called conspiracy theorists, not only will Victoria Police knock down your door or drag you out of your car, because that happened on the weekend at a woman at a checkpoint, and Dan Andrews said it could have been avoided if she just complied and given her name and address. They will put you in a cattle car for something you posted on the internet. Almost.
Yeah. So it's important to note, like, they're not just talking about they're not just talking about putting people who are at risk of spreading so-called COVID-19 to other people. Like, they're talking about putting deniers, the so-called deniers, people who speak out against it.
It's
very bad ideas.
Very slippery slope there.
It's amazing.
That's
off the cliff.
It's basically a concentration camp, what they're talking about.
Almost 200 people were fined and 74 were arrested in Melbourne on Sunday during dramatic rallies as anti-lockdown protesters ramped up their campaign. This was at the Queen Victoria Market. They had the full Spartan riot gear, Victoria Police. Victoria Police said 176 fines were issued for breaches of the Chief Health Officer's directions. Well, it's now legitimate to ask the question, are they the Chief Health Officer's directions, or is it what Dictator Dan has decided?
It's intriguing that they're still using that language then, aren't they? Yeah.
Because
have you seen them uniforms from that same... have you seen the Safe City group that they're launching all over the world?
I need to look into that. What is it? Yeah, Safer Cities Network.
So we've sold into that network and privatised our police force. So that's where them uniforms come from, and they're popping up all over the world. So I haven't looked right into it either. I've only just sort of breached the surface, but it is very interesting. It seems that Daniel Andrews has entered into
but that's a conspiracy theory.
I'm popping over the border. So.
I got to say, I saw one clip that was a bit weird to me of the protests in Victoria, in Melbourne. There was one scene where somebody was getting arrested rather dramatically, but there were just riot cops everywhere, and the guy giving instructions, like giving commands, had an American accent, and I just thought, oh, that's weird. Like, he's in a Victoria Police uniform, but he's American. Like it could be nothing. It could just be a guy who migrated, but it also, like,
Would
just
be
funny
something.
timing. Maybe there's some international element going on.
Well, it's funny you say that. So at the moment, in the background, there's a group. I don't know if you know who Mark Vitalik is, but he's the godfather of common law. So very, very well known in constitutional circles and all that. He used to be a solicitor, and he's starting a new party at the moment, trying to build a new infrastructure to take our country back to a more constitutional way of being. And in the background, he has a lot of prominent ex-members of parliament, prominent barristers, ex-lawyers, ex-judges, ex-officers of law, and they're working hard at the moment to build a group in the background. But yeah, I lost my actual point there. But
we were talking about the Riot Squad, yeah.
Okay. Oh, the Riot Squad, yeah. So
yeah.
Yeah, so they're launching this thing, and they're encouraging everybody to look into the position of becoming a CPO, a community protection, Commonwealth public official. So it's a position that the police used to hold before 1973. So, and after that, when the Australian Act came into play and we lost our constitution, it's changed. But this is a position that anybody can enact. It's very well kept secret. Australia is the only country in the world that holds this position. So our forefathers had the foresight to see that, people like Daniel Andrews and stuff like that would get in these positions of power and use the government to basically inflict tyranny on the people. And they gave us a way to enact power over them, which is basically Australia's version of the Texas Rangers. So all you do is you get a there's templates available to do it, but you fill out a form, you get it notarized, you send it off to the authorities, and they send back an affidavit so that you can enact this position. And what this position is if you see any breach of the peace or act against the Commonwealth, it becomes your duty to step into that situation and to act as an agent of the Commonwealth. So it's been
like
used
a sheriff.
Very much so. So you have all the powers of the police, the powers that the police had before 1973. Anyone tries to stop you, it's automatically obstruction of justice. If they assault you, it's assaulting an officer of the Commonwealth, 10-year jail term, obstructing justice, 2-year jail term. Over the last few years, it has been this position. It's starting to come out. More and more people are learning about it, but there's a lot of responsibilities that come with it. You have to be very careful when enacting this position. So last year, there was a person who took it a bit far and he made himself a uniform, just like the Riot Squad things, put badges on, all that, CPO badges. He actually walked into a court and tried to arrest a magistrate sitting in court. Backfire, didn't go well, but there's been other cases where people have intervened, used the CPO for the right reasons and intervened in court cases to speak on behalf of people, stop breaches of the peace, enact trials on the spot, because you also have the authority under the Queen to try the thing. So it's a position of power.
Old school.
Yeah, it's something that we really need to start looking into to take the power back from the government, because we have a lot of
in an organised fashion too. You need large groups of men doing this together.
Well, funny you mentioned that, James. We actually have a social group at the moment called the Australian Men's Action Group. So we've started in Albury, Wodonga, and we're currently expanding to other locations. We're looking at locations in Melbourne and stuff like that. So basically, I run a combat gym. So a lot of it is combat training. We also do physical training. We have a weight gym. In the new premises we're opening, it's a lifestyle and self-empowerment centre. So we're doing workshops, lifestyle workshops, from learning your rights to bush survival skills, gardening, prepping, learning how to
producing useful men.
Yeah, that is basically what we're trying to do, and we're encouraging everybody who comes into our club to do these courses and learn how to be a CPO, learn the rights and responsibilities involved in that, and then go out and enact that into our community. And I want to encourage everybody out there to learn about this stuff too, because it really gives us power over these tyrannical acts of the government. We can use these powers for the benefit of our community. So it's not something that we can use on a national level, on a government scale. It's more a community thing, but it gives us power over when the police find out that you know about this position and you know how to use this position, it really puts them on their heels. They tend to back away straight away. So I encourage everybody out there to look into this further. And if anybody wants any more information or any help setting it up, you can find us at AMAG Project on Facebook and AMAG, and then we can help you do it, because it's something that, you know, the more people we can get to do this, you know, every protest that we have, when the police have their people, we can have our people, you know, so we can police the police and we can hold them accountable, because they can't, you know, we have that power, we have that authority. So we need to learn how to use it and put it into action. So yeah, that's my spiel, boys.
Yeah,
excellent.
pitch, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm gonna look
Good.
into it.
Yeah, very interesting stuff.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, if you want any more information, get in contact with me, because it is a little bit hard to find out about. Obviously, the powers that be to keep this information. So if you Google Commonwealth Public Official, you will find nothing. You will find absolutely nothing. So you might want to look through DuckDuckGo and places like that.
Well, I can include a link in the show notes page.
Yeah, so if you can include a link to Solutions Empowerment, the website there, that'd be fantastic. They have all the information. They have all the templates available for you. You can buy them for a small monetary fee, because there's a lot of work went into it, and they'll give you that. You take the template, you put your name on it, you sign it, you send it away, the job's done. So I'd encourage everybody to look into that and learn the rights and learn the rights we have and use them.
Jarrad, I'll talk to you afterwards. Like you messaged me the other week saying, write something for XYZ. I'd love to put something up on XYZ about that. That'd be really good material.
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to get the word about our group out there a bit more and try to get that going, because that's really a community-based group that is all about people helping people. So we want men and women. We have the Australian Women's Action Group as well, so AWAG. So we want men and women to come together. We're actually having a first hike, David, if you want to come. We're having a hike in the Victorian High Country on the 4th of October. Social distancing will, of course, be respected if you want to come. But, if you want to come, we're all going up. Neil Erickson and Ricky T will be there. We have all the members from up here. We have about 20 members here that'll be there. We're all going for a 14K hike up through the high country, 7-hour round trip. So, you're more than welcome to come. But, I'm definitely willing to write something about that, because like I said, I want to get it out there. We're trying to encourage health and fitness, family skills, life skills, all into one group. So look out for us, because we're coming.
Epic.
And this has been one of the most ludicrous things about the lockdowns, supposedly to keep us healthy. Well, in Melbourne, we were only allowed 1 hour of exercise up until this week, where prisoners in Victoria are entitled to 90 minutes. We're allowed 2 hours now, but as I said in my introduction, even though regional Victoria is semi-free now, gyms can't open.
No, sorry about the baby, boys.
Don't be sorry about it, baby.
Beautiful. Yeah. Make more.
We hope you can get 10 more of them. Yeah.
No, I'm trying. Don't worry, I'm trying. That's the future right there. That's the future.
That's it, mate. Breathe. Never apologize for it.
So what was that? Sorry, Tim?
I'll keep going with this XYZ satire
Tim,
mashup.
I hate to interrupt the reading of my own work, but
That's your authority.
I just want to keep going with the wild speculation regarding the Victorian riot squad. Just to finish that tangent off, just to bookend that.
Yeah.
It is intriguing, because building what you were saying, the badge that they seem to be wearing is this red kind of badge. It's not an Australian insignia. It's like this red badge.
Yeah.
People pointed that out. And the other day, like when Maddie and I would, you got something to say on that one, Jarrad?
No. I have seen the same thing. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And so the other thing is, Maddie and I, this might be the go with the American accent that you're referring to, James. Maddie and I we were looking at a photo, and like the guy who seems to be the leader is either a giant or the riot squad is full of children. Like the guy who's actually the leader has got to be over 2 meters tall.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So he's a Nephilim, demon spawn, American
I think that's
installed.
the only rational explanation. Yeah.
Yeah, demons have infiltrated every level of the Victorian government, and the Nephilim are going to emerge. You'll see more giants in the streets. Yep, commanding troops against you.
Pretty much.
In the future.
Pretty much.
Can I just on this topic? Blue Ribbon Day is coming up on September 28th, where I've seen some of the paraphernalia out to support police. Given the current state of things in Victoria, it'll be interesting how the sales go of blue ribbons compared to last year. But when I was on the Blue Ribbon Foundation website, and this will probably get everyone's knickers in a frenzy. It's remember.org.au.
Second, I thought you said something else there, Tim.
Yeah, it has. These are the.
Is it knickers? Knickers, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, frenzy.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you said knickers. Knickers. Yeah.
I think I've seen that. I think I've seen knickers in a frenzy once or twice in my life.
I created a new term on air. Anyway,
Good, man. I like it. Knickers in a frenzy. It's great.
One of the major partners of Blue Ribbon Day is the Freemasons Foundation Victoria.
Isn't that convenient?
And Bank Vic, whatever. I've never heard of Vic Bank before.
No,
But yeah, when I saw that, I was sort of like, really?
Actually, I just noticed something in the comments. Margaret Rains said, "Has anyone noticed there are many Asian or Indian police officers?" I was just mentioning that yesterday. In the last week or last month, I've been pulled over by 3 Asians and an Indian, and I'm in the country now. Yeah, I'm not racist, and I'm all for multiculturalism in our police force, but I have had a little bit of contact with the police over the years, to say the least, and I have never seen so many ethnic police officers, and I do not know where they're all coming from. I know the police used to make it very hard with their English test for ethnics to get in, but they must have dropped the standards, because the people I've been pulled over recently, they aren't speaking clear English. They are.
Oh, really?
No, they're well. Let me be fair. One of the Asians did. He spoke clear English, but there was a couple that didn't. They really didn't.
Yeah, but
they were hard to understand. You know,
you want to be a community officer of the peace. You want to be able to communicate with the community well. You know, like you'd think.
Well,
that's
Well,
English would be a minimum.
it seems that, well, based on what we've seen with Victoria Police, it's not really about communication. It's just about using force.
Well, you know, that's the most efficient form of communication.
All they want you to do is enter a contract. Once they have you enter that contract, it's all downhill from there. If you don't know how to speak legalese, which is a language of its own, you know, as soon as you start to talk to the police, you're in trouble. Back to what you were saying before, Tim, I believe we were saying, you know, we need to get James, the lawyers to, you know, to look at these fines and stuff like that. A lot of these people that are on, they're speaking to lawyers and they're speaking to duty solicitors and stuff like that. The lawyer's first job, first and foremost, part of their oath is to uphold the legal system. So the legal system's fraudulent, and they know that, but their job is to uphold it. So serving us and giving us the proper advice becomes a second agenda to them. They're always going to look after the legal establishment before us. So that's why it's much better if we can learn the rights and represent ourselves in court, because the lawyers aren't there to help us. They're there to help the court. So everybody should, when it comes to the fines, they should look at representing themselves, because you know the lawyers will give you they'll give you bad advice in a lot of cases. They will not tell you all your options. They will tell you what's easiest for them, and you know what's just the establishment wants you to go with. So you never get a fair deal if you go through legal advice, you know, legal aid, and that especially.
Point well made.
Yeah. Sorry to go a bit off topic.
Yeah.
No, that's good. That was good to cap it off.
That's the whole point of this show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Off topic is that's where I live. So
and, you know, we
they come.
We jump around a bit and sometimes lose those little threads, and it's nice to join them up again and, you know, get sound advice.
Yeah.
Even I joined in.
Full circle around here.
I'll get on with now, unless anyone else has got any last words before I read the rest.
Don't give me another opportunity, mate. I'll keep going.
Yeah.
Tell my wife I love her.
So,
mine's sitting next to me. So.
Yeah. Mentally impaired, severely drug affected, or homeless Victorians, those unable to quarantine, could also be placed in hotels for 2 weeks as a precaution, or they can just...
And this isn't satire, this is real news.
Yeah, or they can just stomp on their
That's
heads
not a bad deal.
and put them into comas. The powers will be debated in state parliament under the omnibus. Well, literally, well, as we saw with that police car hitting that mentally ill man, you will, literally get hit by a bus, a type of bus.
Oh, Disney van at least.
Yeah, emergency measures bill. Always be aware of any legislation that has got the term emergency in it.
Yeah, big time.
The Victorian government said the bill it would help them maintain a strong pandemic response and expand the number of authorised officers working to keep coronavirus under control. Victoria State of Emergency and State of Disaster.
So authorised officers, these are the bureaucrats. That
anyone can
into
be
the system, and they get given authority like the police, and this is it's just like Russia. Just build a whole network of professional snitches and busybodies to spy on the neighbours and break into the neighbours' homes with legal authority to do it. That's what they'll do.
The Victoria's state of emergency and state of disaster due to end on October 11th allows authorised officers to detain anyone for the period reasonably necessary, so undefined period, to eliminate or reduce a serious risk to public health. So it's not about coronavirus, but serious risk to public health.
Yeah, and they could totally use that language to justify detaining conspiracy theorists and deniers, because if the ideas that are causing people to go out and protest or causing people to refuse to take a vaccine or any of that stuff, if they're considered to be dangerous ideas to the public health, then why wouldn't they interpret this law to include those sorts of people too? So be careful what you say.
It's shifting the goalposts.
Don't give advice too easily.
In a statement to The Age, Attorney General Jill Hennessy, who's talked about as one of the potential successors to Dan Andrews, said the extension of the detainee powers would allow us to continue responding to the challenges the pandemic presents, so it can keep protecting Victorians and delivering the services they rely on. So it's all about protection.
Yeah, mission creep, moving the goalposts.
And then we get to the next thing. For the greater good, the Premier also confirmed reports that an exact replica of the Auschwitz death camp has been constructed at the Calder Park Raceway, where thought criminals will be processed. Wrong thinkers will actually find their stay. No matter how many times you've recycled
hold it together, Tim. Hold it together, Tim.
This is the absurdity of where we're in. It's the absurdity that this is nearly the case.
We'll get onto this in a bit, won't we? Yeah.
Wrong thinkers will actually find their stay a pleasant experience. Everybody's given a shower upon entry, and their clothes are burnt in order to ensure no coronavirus pathogens enter the camp. And uniforms have been donated by the Collingwood Football Club.
Do you want me to continue, Tim?
He's caught off the edge.
I can do it. Amenities include a swimming pool, theatre, an orchestra, and even a roller coaster.
What kind of death camp is this? Ridiculous, Dave. Ridiculous.
It's all based on historical facts.
So in completely unrelated news, Daniel Andrews has announced the establishment of a soap factory in Bacchus Marsh and a lampshade assembly centre in Ballarat. According to the Premier, these projects will ensure we can keep Victorian economy rolling during these difficult times. Jailing political prisoners keeps us together. Political prisoners are selfish and stupid. In further unrelated news, the Premier has announced a new allocation of funds for the creation of railways leading to said facilities at Calder Park and the refitting of livestock transportation rail cars to accommodate humans. The spokesperson for Mr Andrews claims this will allow for the most efficient transportation of enemies of the state while minimising human impacts on the planet during a climate emergency.
Well done, Tim. You made it. Without
Although,
a few chuckles.
as we keep saying, XYZ satire turns out to be pretty true. This was a media release on the Premier's website dated 14th of September. Prison expansion to deliver new jobs in Campbellfield. Work to provide new cells to house more than 616 prisoners will begin shortly, with the signing of a $41 million contract to manufacture 460 prefabricated steel modular cells for 5 Victorian prison sites. Around 20 local manufacturing jobs will be created with the contract with the modular building systems, with work on plumbing, electrical, furniture and fixtures undertaken in the Melbourne suburb of Campbellfield. The cell manufacturing is the first stage of a program to expand the capacity of 5 Victorian prisons announced in the Victorian budget 2019-20 to provide prisons with flexibility to meet future needs.
What kind of government expands its prison system in the middle of a pandemic
For
when they have
flexibility.
the entire population locked down?
One with
of a
bad
city?
intentions, I think. That's
That's just amazing. It
Yeah.
blows my mind. Well, of all the predictions I made, this was the most outlandish, and they're actually doing it.
But the one that hasn't come true yet is the penis amputation one.
Yeah, give it time.
Compulsory circumcision.
Yeah.
I've read about that somewhere once before.
Once cell manufacturing is complete, Victorian businesses and workers will be involved in an extensive construction program, building cell accommodation blocks and a range of supporting infrastructure. These projects will be a major generator of local jobs and economic activity for Barwon Prison, a Imaginet Correction Centre, Middleton Prison, Hopkins Correctional Centre, and Metropolitan Remand Centre. Construction across these 5 sites is expected to be completed by mid-2023 as part of a project delivered by the Community Safety Building Authority within the Department of Justice and Community Safety.
So it's they're actually building a Gulag archipelago. They're expanding the Gulag archipelago in Victoria. That's what it sounds like.
Barwon Prison will be the first to have the new cells installed, expanding its capacity to accommodate a total of 640 prisoners by late 2022, which is when the state election is held. Supporting infrastructure for the additional beds at Barwon will include a visitor centre, light industries buildings and a men's shed. The existing programs and medical buildings will also be expanded and refurbished, and internal fencing will be built. Across the Victorian prison system...
It's going to be Disneyland. You'll love it. You'll love it.
With a roller coaster?
I don't know.
I'll tell you one thing, mate, Barwon's no Disneyland, that's for sure. Definitely wouldn't compare them to.
Across the Victorian prison system, 1,600 new beds will become available as part of the 2019-20 Victorian budget, 1.8 billion investment to meet future demand and deliver programs to break the cycle of reoffending and keep people out of prison.
A state that's expanding is also, forgetting the times of Corona that we're in, just, where there's such a large expansion of cells, it just shows that they're not at all interested in rehabilitation or getting people out of the prison system, and that they're looking for more beds to fill. They want more people to become, I think, legal wards of the state. I think this is what we'll eventually move towards, is camps will expand, and because of all of these fears about the disease and fears about the wrong ideas being spread, they'll start to deem people unfit to be part of normal society, and you'll just become a legal ward of the state. You'll just become an indentured slave.
They're letting out hardened criminals early, because of COVID, but then they're locking up first-time offenders, trying to institutionalise the youth. That's why they're building these prisons. The more youth they can put in there and institutionalise, the less resistance they'll have to roll out their grand plan. So they're letting out these harder criminals to make more trouble. There's more experienced criminals, but yet they're locking away the young ones. It's absolute fucking craziness. It's, they're robbing Peter and Paul.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of prisoners, Andy Nault is due to be released, Neil said, tomorrow or maybe Saturday. He's been in prison for nearly 6 months for breaching his community corrections order for spray painting the dick on Eurydice Dixon, the rape and murder Dixon's memorial.
Not the smartest thing to do.
Yeah, he meant it
Well,
as
what was that? I've heard this mentioned a few times by you, Tim. What was it about? Like, why did he do it?
He wanted to make a protest against feminists hijacking her rape and murder to pursue their man-hating agenda.
So why didn't he spray paint the dick on the feminist building or something?
Well, because
I don't think he thought it through a whole lot.
I actually wrote an article basically defending what he did.
All right.
At least the drawing.
Give us the nutshell defense.
So the nutshell defense is that feminists are obsessed with penises. If you look at like their criticism, for example, of say a city building, they say that a high-rise city building is a penis. And when you look at feminist architecture, what do they build? They literally build caves, i.e. they build vaginas. Like after millions of books, millions of lines, billions of words written in the name of feminism, what's their revolutionary approach to architecture? They build a vagina. And they say, hey, at least it's not a penis. If you look at feminist critique of music, they critique music on the basis that music written by men builds directly and with a sense of urgency to a climax, and then once that climax is gone, it soon dissipates. So when women write music, it sort of meanders around, it doesn't really go anywhere. So like they're basically the feminist approach to music is to say music is either a male orgasm or a female orgasm. They are obsessed with your body parts, they're obsessed with what you do. The most effective protest against any kind of feminist hijacking of anything is to draw a penis. You can make the case that it was insensitive to do it on the actual memorial to a murdered woman. But drawing a penis
that's where I lean.
drawing a penis is not only legitimate, it's effective. It's
I mean, I did have political graffiti.
But can I add some additional info here that Andy apologised to Eurydice's father in writing. That apology was accepted. And he was actually against him being sent to prison for the breach of his corrections order.
Well, that's a little light in the darkness there. I like that.
I must say, I don't know Andy, and I've never met him, but I know he's a good mate of Neil's, and Neil speaks very highly of him. So, yeah, Neil's bloody, well, I suppose his, what's the word I'm looking for? His acknowledgement of him, that's enough for me. If Neil vouches for him, then he's good by me. So. Yeah.
He'll be on if he does get out in the next 2 days. He will be on the Uncuckables next week to tell the inside story about being on the inside.
I'll be interested to hear that.
Yeah, what a catch.
So I'm not sure.
There won't be much of a story. It's a very boring place. So most of it will be sitting there twiddling his thumbs.
Oh, I mean more about how he ended up
6 months.
there.
Maybe he got jacked. Maybe he just started doing the burpees and. Going to come out absolutely ripped. That'll be good.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, we'll see.
Never last.
We'll see. Now, where are we now?
Well, we've finished all the satire, which is about done,
yeah. That's all, folks.
We've got. We're going to mention because we've been talking about these state border closures, and I want to bring attention to an article that you wrote for the Unshackled a while back, Jarrad, about the Constitution. What you don't know might hurt you. It told the story of Asha Faye van der Sareen, who was a 28-year-old West Australian woman. She was sentenced to 6 months in prison for sneaking across the Western Australian border from Victoria. She isolated at a friend's place, not in hotel quarantine, which is mandatory in Western Australia. So it's not like she roamed around the community potentially infecting people. She tested negative. But an update on that, if I just bring it up here, is that she's appealed her sentence and she'll just get 50 hours of community service, and it's a 6-month community based order. So
Yeah, Look, that's a much better result than 6 months imprisonment. But the fact of the matter is that she allowed them to give her this penalty by acknowledging the validity of the law, which she should never have done. It's not that the laws aren't valid. If she had have stood her ground and knew how to hold her position, she would have known to plead not guilty. Then she could have challenged it. Even if she had been convicted, she could have challenged it up to a higher court where constitutional matters are meant to be dealt, because they're not something a magistrate court is supposed to deal with anyway. So, I really feel for her, because it's a system that has, again, it's a system that's created this problem, and it's a system that has kept this knowledge from her. So the fact that they, and again, James, her lawyer, should have known this and should have told her this stuff. So the fact that her legal aid has advised her to plead guilty to these charges in the first place, he should be fired. The fact that the system's been allowed to, to then, she was remanded in jail before, like the fact that she's
a
been
lot of
through
people,
this, she's
a lot of
been
people are
publicly
just
shamed.
shit scared, this is for intimidation reasons, and a lot of people do not want to, just don't want that fight. They don't want to go to court more than once.
No,
because the process,
well, they don't know.
The process is always
you
the punishment.
Yeah, and look, if you don't know, how can you fight it? And the information is out there, but it's it's a lot of work, and it's a lot to digest. So, as I said, they have their own language, so you have to learn the terms of legally. It is a long process. So I understand why people can be daunted into undertaking it, but it is, very much a process that we all need to understand, because when we do, then people like this won't be victims. All she needed was one person in her life to say, hold on, there's something wrong here. You're guilty of nothing. All you've done is travelled from one state to another. You've gone home. That's all she did was go home. So she has every fucking right to go home. We're in Australia. The fact that they've sentenced her to 6 months in jail, which now has been downgraded, as Tim just said, but the fact that they had the audacity to hand down that sentence in the first place is absolutely ridiculous. If she didn't appeal that, if she had just, again, took that as what they gave her, she would have been doing 6 months in jail. But the fact that she did appeal that, if she had appealed the original thing, instead of pleading guilty, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
And the only reason why the left have been able to rally and overtake our legal system in the first place is because they've, always been able to gather enough of a petitioning mob together to push back against the laws that they don't like and to install their laws. And, it just takes a critical mass of people being aware of this stuff, having the resources, sharing it around quickly. The resources that you're creating, Jarrad, are awesome, and
thank you very much.
But yeah, it's when people start doing it in a way that it becomes a genuine threat to the system as it stands, status quo.
Yeah.
That's when real change will occur. But in the meantime, when it's everyone just going out on their own, and potentially having to, climb through these varying levels of intensity, it's just too much for some folks. So the more that we can federate and link arms with each other, and as communities really pay attention to who's getting in trouble and rally around them and gather the community around them and show that support, then we're going to actually be in a position to fight back against these laws.
That's right, and that's what we're trying to build here with shows like this. Bringing us all together is what the community needs. So, it's definitely it's a good thing that these boys are doing, that you yourself doing, James. And if we continue to grow and continue to unite, like you said, we will see some real change. So we'll get this knowledge out there, and in this day and age, anything is possible. So. The government's there to serve us. The power of the government is the people, and that's what this government has to realise. We are the power of the government. So when we realise that, then we can take back that power. So.
Well, speaking of legal challenges, one person who's never shy of a legal challenge to the state is Avi Yemeni, who we remember he was arrested, or they later said he was detained at the anti-lockdown protest at the Shrine of Remembrance on Saturday, September 5th, even though he had his permit papers with him as a Rebel News reporter. And
they just rebel and they tackled.
They just seen Avi and they tackled. But yeah, again, you know, he was in his right. He had every right to be there. You know, again, that's police brutality. That's police overstepping their boundaries. You know, so you know, I support Avi standing against them. So you know, I won't be giving him any money for the cause, but I do 100% to support his fight against them, because you know what they've done is assault. It's breach of the peace. You know, they can't do that. So Avi has
and
every right.
It's gonna take lots of individual, like lots of these little cases of pushback and legal
100%.
suits again to put enough
100%.
pressure on the system.
Yeah.
So you know, even regardless of the specific circumstances, because the total state is really turning against the people in total, then really you should just get behind everyone who's pushing back against anything to do with these lockdown laws and the anti protesting
much respect
policing.
to everyone.
Just help them all out.
I remember when it happened, I Stand With Dan people on Twitter were celebrating his arrest, saying that he's not a real journalist, he's an agitator, provocateur, and Avi had the best comeback. So you're saying because I have biases, that doesn't make me a journalist, yet you consider Waleed Ali a journalist?
I think the question is more whether or not he's a double agent, but anyway.
He should have just said anti-Semitism, and
plus,
shut him down.
There's too much hate in this world as it is, you know. Like, good on Avi for doing something. He's out there, you know, whatever his motives may be, you know, he's out there and he's bringing attention to it. So, you know, I think enough bad has been said by everybody about everybody. So my hat goes off to Avi, full respect, you know, whatever his motives may be, as long as you know he has the betterment of people in his heart, as long as he wants better for people, better for his family, better for his community, you know, I support that. So, yeah, I won't say a bad word about anybody.
Fair enough, man. You'll keep a lot of friends that way.
Yeah, these people on Twitter who claim that Avi's not a real journalist, who gets to decide who's a real journalist? I suppose they would like Dan to introduce a journalist licensing system where he gets to decide who's a journalist.
You need a degree in communications,
I've wrote 3 articles
in journalism.
Yeah, I've wrote 3 articles now, and I tell everybody I'm a journalist. So why not?
I've written over 1,000. I tell people I'm not a real journalist.
I tell them I'm a published author. So that sounds even better.
Well, all we have to do is just say we're dissident journalists. You know, like, you don't think we're real journalists. We're very glad you don't consider us to be in the same category as you, Phil.
I'm not a real journalist. I'm just an amateur shit talker. That's all I am.
XYZ were given accreditation to cover Fraser Anning's press conferences.
Yeah,
that's
true.
Legit, totally legit.
And I remember seeing the footage. There's sort of other journalists around in the room were sort of shocked when you and Maddie asked questions.
Yeah, I sort of piped in. I quite enjoyed that. I asked Fraser Anning about the fake news media. Yeah.
The look on them squirming next to you.
You can literally see the woman in front of me squirming. Yeah, and like she's got a scowl on her face. It was one of the most beautiful things. One of the most beautiful moments of the last 5 years. Yeah.
It's one of those little people who think their opinions matter.
In Canada, rebel news journalists are arrested all the time because people think that Dan Andrews is bad during this pandemic. Justin Trudeau is awful in normal times. Ezra Levant, he was even detained by Canadian authorities, questioned over a book that he'd written critical of the Trudeau government because they considered it a breach of electoral laws.
Yeah, I saw the clip of his interrogation, and he just interrogated right back. He's a gifted orator, Ezra. He'd be a great representative in a law court. But there's something interesting about the rebel media outlet. Is it seems that its journalists are getting arrested everywhere, like all the time. That seems to be a very recurring thing for rebel media journals in particular.
Well, I just put it down to the absolute state of things in Canada.
Well, sorry, back to bringing things full circle again. I just had another. So the conversation we were having earlier that I completely forgot what we were talking about. So when we were talking about the riot squad, so there was actually with this Mark Batalik and this group is starting. He's actually had. I'm not privy to say too much information because it's not my place to speak. But I have spoke to Mark and he has given me the okay to promote what he's doing. So he's actually had someone come over and see him recently who was involved in a coup overseas. So they actually, I won't say what country, but they actually stood up against the globalists and they managed to take back the country from the Rockefellers. So they managed to arrest quite a few of them and they kicked a few out the country. So he's had a meeting with the person who was highly involved in this coup overseas and they've given him a full template, so to speak, of how they overthrew this government and got the globalists out. So watch this space when it comes to they're tossing around names at the moment. They're talking about calling themselves the National People Organisation. I'm not 100% that they have decided on that yet, but you will see something come in the coming months. And they do have a lot of people on their side, and they do have information into how governments have recently been taking back their systems from the globalists. So it's a very intricate system with a lot of pieces, a lot of pawns to play, and a million people involved. And I'm sure you will all be great contributors to the cause if it's something that you choose to involve yourself in when you find out more about it. But it is definitely something to watch because they are trying to bring back a more constitutional country, and they have had success in other countries. So, yeah. That's sorry to again full circle, but I forgot to mention that before. But yeah, so it's very interesting that we have international power makers at play here that have a interest in seeing the globalists removed from control. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Mysterious and sounds highly illegal.
All on board.
So nobody get involved.
No.
For more information, go to Solutions Empowerment because I'm not the man to talk about it. But on there, you'll find much greater minds than mine. And they released a webinar just yesterday about this whole thing. So it has become public knowledge now. So if you go there, you can find out more information. Solutions.
Crank up the VPN.
Yeah.
We've got a super chat on entropy from Pissy Leaks Pete, also known as Peter V, for $3 Australian. He's promoting his latest video on his YouTube channel when little fatty Pigum Cornelius was flogging bog roll, and he's provided a link to the YouTube video, so I'll put that in the chat. Thank you for that.
Pete does good edits.
Super chat.
They're quality.
And I've missed. He hasn't done many for a while now, so I'm glad that he's back. I can't wait to watch it myself. So thanks for the super chat, and thanks for producing the video. I wonder if we'll hear from him tomorrow, because we heard from those two other deputy commissioners. It was one on Tuesday about the IBAC investigation into the head stomping police officer and the car ramming one, and then another one on Wednesday about the new $5,000 fine. I looked up the Victoria Police hierarchy. A deputy commissioner is higher than an assistant commissioner. So obviously there's the chief commissioner, which is Shane Patton. Then there's a whole bunch of deputy commissioners, and then there's assistant commissioners, which are third on the hierarchy. So Luke Cornelius is actually down on the third level of the hierarchy. So deputy is the second. But they've been getting him to do the press conferences. We'll see if he makes an appearance tomorrow and see what he says.
Well, again, with these sort of Bolshevik style communist bureaucracies that they build up, they always have their key people whose heads are able to roll, like they always put people who they don't necessarily rely on to be the spokespersons and the scapegoat once again. So it'll be interesting to see if Cornelius Wiggum keeps his job for much longer, or if he becomes the scapegoat, for Dan Andrews and his head rolls, and he's replaced with somebody higher up. We shall see.
We shall.
Well,
I hate to be the scapegoat for all this, wouldn't you? This is a big one that someone's going to wear. So.
Yeah, I just don't understand how any servants of the state of Victoria can sleep at night right now without questioning or quitting their positions.
Yeah, well, that's right. Well, again, acting in honour. So if they were honourable, they wouldn't call themselves servants, would they? Yeah.
Well, let's move over to, well, not the United States as a whole, but the west coast of the United States, with the states of California, Oregon, and Washington State all on fire. They call them wildfires over there, and of course they're blaming them on climate change. Joe Biden called Donald Trump a climate arsonist. But isn't it sort of
it's basically like a carbon copy of the debate that we had here in Australia during the summer. Yeah. But like you've literally got leftists lighting fires.
Yeah, isn't it a coincidence that
Republican areas?
No, but these are all three liberal states that have been run by Democrat liberal progressives.
They're liberal states, but the bushfires are actually in Republican areas. Basically, like the cities in California, Oregon, and Washington State are liberal, but you go like 50 k's inland, and it's basically all red state.
Well, this is the crucial discussion really for America right now, and this is why a lot of the cessationists are talking about remodeling and reshuffling things, and basically returning cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco and Seattle, returning these cities to becoming autonomous city-states with their own self-governance, and then they can be as blue as they want to be till the cows come home. But the red state, farmers, the rural agricultural workers mostly, and the blue-collar workers outside of the cities, they're not going to be governed by people whose ideals are antithetical to theirs.
Ben Shapiro finally made the decision to leave California along with his Daily Wire company, and they're going to be relocating to Nashville, Tennessee. No, Nashville, Tennessee.
Why wouldn't he's got?
Because he's America first.
Would have sworn it was going to be Tel Aviv.
Well, Tel Aviv is just a bigger liberal shithole than California.
It wouldn't be Tel Aviv. That's true.
But as you alluded to, Dave, a lot of these fires have been allegedly lit by Antifa and Black Lives Matter activists. He is one of them who was charged here. This is from the Post-Millennial. Jeffrey Accord, 36, a player, called 911 Wednesday evening to report fire in the, and then he was later. Here's his charge here. But as we just said, that the rural people are disenfranchised, and it's the uber progressives, degenerates in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Portland, and Seattle who vote in the governments that have these policies. But as you know, I'm not religious, but a lot of people have been making the correlation to the passing of this bill and the California wildfires. Governor Gavin Newsom signs bill reducing penalties for sodomy with minors.
So you're suggesting, as an atheist, Tim, that God has decided to smite California with fires?
Well, I see the correlation. Obviously, Israel Folau got into
Hallelujah! He believes in God.
Israel Folau got into
California to be on fire, and Tim finally believes in God.
Israel Folau, he got slammed for suggesting that the New South Wales bushfires were punishment for the state legalizing abortion. It was one of the state's worst bushfires. Just happened after that. So.
We are starting to see a pattern here, aren't we?
Yeah,
be careful who you invoke the wrath of God against.
Yeah, well, let's go through what this bill actually is. So, Governor Gavin Newsom signed a controversial bill into law Friday that will give judges greater discretion to decide whether adults who commit sodomy with minors should be placed on California's sex offender register. The bill, which was passed by the Democrat-led legislature last week, created a firestorm. Well, that's could be a double meaning there. As proponents said, its main purpose was to end discrimination against LGBT adults who have oral and anal sex with minors who claim to be consenting to this sexual activity.
Don't discriminate against the poor pedophiles and the pederasts and the groomers. The
Yeah.
creepy man.
Uh,
Don't discriminate against them. They have feelings. They're humans too.
It's amazing.
While they
It's
stick their
amazing.
finger up your son's bum, they have feelings too. Don't be mean to them.
It's amazing because it's the typical thing where, like, if they say it, it's okay, but if we say it, it's bigotry. Like, if we point out that there's actually a correlation between pedophilia and homosexuality, that's bigotry. But, like, here they are basically admitting it, and they're saying, yeah, we want to make it legal.
so
we've been warning that there's no end to it. It's not going to end with marriage.
Yeah.
You know, this was the warning from the Christian right in particular, and you know, we're finding out.
the law was introduced by State Senator Scott Wiener, said in a statement on social media that the new law would put an end to blatant discrimination against young LGBT people engaged in consensual activity. It's appalling that in 2020, California continues to discriminate against LGBTQ people by mandating that LGBTQ young people be placed on sex offenders registry in situations where straight people aren't required to be placed on the registry, Wiener said. And this is his tweet. Providing again, he's a true champion of the LGBT community, even when it's hard. Governor Newsom signed SB 145, ending discrimination against LGBTQ young people on CA Sex Offenders Registry. Thank you for seeing through the quantum lies about this equality legislation.
Well, see, the thing is, it's about the sodomy factor, right? And this will be one of the last laws in California that still specifies sodomy as being the offence. And that's why they're saying that it affects LGBTQ people, where it doesn't affect heterosexual people, because heterosexual pedophiles tend not to engage in sodomy, apparently. So it's like they've found the last law that refers to sodomy, and there's, you know, to me, there's no surprise there. And they're going to remove that criminalization of sodomy, thus making Sodom, you know, completely legal and all of its activities glorified and restored, and our attitude against Sodom and the ways of Sodom that have been, you know, antithetical to them over the entirety of Christian history, they're wiped away now, and we have to embrace Sodom fully, embrace the spirit of Sodom fully. So I see the connection too, Tim. I'm not going to claim that it's an act of God that California's on fire, but history may record it in an interesting way.
Going on, existing state laws allows judges to decide whether adults who have penile vaginal intercourse with minors must register as a sex offender. Wiener said the current law targets LGBT individuals because they do not engage in penile vaginal intercourse. This is such horrific homophobia, Wiener said, according to the San Francisco Chronicle. It's irrational and it ruins people's lives. And he's got this is a tweet, right-wing playbook on all efforts to achieve LGBTQ equality. Falsely claim children will be harmed or raped. Says that God is mad that LGBTQ people are more equal. Blame California natural disasters on God being made at the gays while ignoring hurricanes or tornadoes in red states.
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree that it's stupid to start claiming that any disaster that works roughly in your favor demographically, politically, is an act of God. I think that's foolishness. But yeah, you know, it's a concern that they want to, you know, where will it go next after this? If they've been able to get this through and normalize this, it's only going to widen, right? The leniency given to this offence against children.
Yeah, the Senate floor analysis states the measure exempts a person convicted of a non-forcible sodomy with a minor, oral copulation with a minor, or sexual penetration with a minor as specified as having to automatically register as a sex offender under the Sex Offender Registry Act if the person was not more than 10 years older than the minor at the time of the offence and the conviction is the only one requiring the person to register. California fails to mandate registration as a sex offender who commits a violation of sexual intercourse with a minor who is within 10 years of the offender. Sexual penetration is distinguishable from sexual intercourse in that a vaginal penetration is anything other than a penis. Additionally, the crimes of sexual conduct with a minor under the age of 14 are punished in a separate code section as lewd and lascivious acts with a minor under the age of 14. This bill allows judges and prosecutors to evaluate cases involving consensual sex acts between young people, regardless of their sexual orientation, on an individual basis. And this was by another state senator. I don't know who Senator Melinda Melendez is. Well, what a shock. Newsom signed a S45 bill that allows a 24-year-old to have sex with a 14-year-old and escape a felony conviction, and requirement to be a registered sex offender. Absolutely disgusting. Well, I assume that she's a non-Democrat or non-progressive. And this was by another...
Yeah, well, she should be a conservative because she's getting all worried about this, but they're also we're also way past gay marriage being allowed, divorce being allowed, abortion being allowed. So it's sort of again, it's always the conservatives just seem to trail behind the liberals saying that's outrageous, but they always catch up eventually.
Yeah, so those are the things that happened in California this week.
Yeah, well, regarding the bushfires, like as we were saying, like there's strong evidence that it's being lit by leftists, and you can basically see it as building on the deliberate carnage that they're doing in the cities, and in burning down the countryside, they're reducing the places that you can white flight to. They're reducing the places that you can Patriot flight to, I guess.
They're also fueling the moral panic and the existential panic. They want to get things whipped up into as much of a frenzy as possible come November, because they're gonna want to really push things through the roof after that, I think, regardless of how the election goes.
All right.
And they're laying it at the feet of Trump, like quite blatantly. They're laying it at the feet of Donald Trump and saying that these fires, it's crazy, but because of their cult of scientism, they honestly are selling this notion that the God of Mother Nature is punishing red Republicans and people who've supported Donald Trump because he questions science, he denies the global warming narrative. So it's the level of insanity that rules over us now is just astonishing.
Do you want to have a look at what Scott Wiener looks like when he's at a pride parade?
Luckily, I don't have to see
there
it.
He is.
Show the audience.
At least in Australia, we don't have politicians like that.
Yeah, don't be so sure what goes on behind closed doors.
Whoa, proposing laws like that.
Yeah, not yet. Not yet.
Good
Give us time.
Yeah. Good time.
Well, if we don't get on board and support something new, it's done so much.
Yeah, we can turn it around. It's definitely not too late to push it back.
I hope so. I can't. I refuse to think that we can't. So if we have no,
it's
hope,
worth trying, even if it is,
yeah.
even if we can't see victory in our
100%.
generation. We're going to lay foundations for the future, and give our children a legacy to be proud of, that we actually stood up and did something. Because why does the world hate the boomers so much right now? Because they really did nothing to prevent this and everything to embrace it.
And if we fail, at least we tried. At least we can look our kids in the eye and say that we tried. That's important to me. So.
Absolutely.
The trad generation should come next.
Yeah, I hope so. And hopefully they don't have too many more gulag, beds set up to throw them straight into.
Well, they say hard men make good times. Good times make soft men. Soft men make hard times. Soft men make bad times. Bad times make hard men, and then it goes around again. Hard men make good times. Good times make soft men. Soft men make bad times. Bad times make hard men. So we're in that time at the moment where we've got a society full of soft men, soft women, soft people. So the bad times are going to come, and it's going to harden us up, and we'll take that hardness to bring us back to a place of peace. But hopefully we can be that people that, so if it happens now in our generation, then our kids will escape that. So I'm willing to go through the fire if that helps my kids in any way. So let's get the fire cracking.
It's basically been an own goal.
How's your bench press going, Dave?
90.
Come up here, Dave. Come up for the walk, and we'll look after you.
It's illegal for him to go.
Don't incite a crime. Don't incite a crime.
If you get a fine, Dave, just let me know. I've got all the templates ready to go for you.
That's still incitement.
I'll expect to knock on my door.
He's in the free state of regional Victoria. He's not in the
It's a non-lockdown state of
Hey,
Victoria.
Tim,
I wouldn't call it
Victoria. I'm sure the Victoria Police and the Australian Federal Police and all our other fans watching know that this is a satire show from beginning to end. Every episode of Uncuckables has been satire.
Didn't they see my research?
Why do you think we're all laughing so much all the time? None of us are ever serious about anything we say here. It's all comedy.
No, we mix it up like the footy show used to do. That glorious.
I see,
show.
Tim's the straight man. He wants to keep it mysterious.
Yeah, I'm like the Eddie Maguire, and who'd be the Sam Newman then?
Maybe
the reference
maybe Richard Wollstonecraft.
Yeah, who'd be the Trevor Marmalade, Billy Brownless, Shane Crawford?
I'm looking more and more like Billy Brownless with every year. So
no, he's much more massive than you. Yeah. And well, I won't get into the rest of it. But going on with the next generation, don't you think that it could be an own goal that during the pandemic all the leftists have kept the schools shut, they are still going to school through remote learning, but they're still they're not in the custody of the teachers at school, teaching them all these various safe schools, respectful relationships, Australia's races, blah blah blah.
Yeah, there's an interesting push as well from the teachers to have privacy. I can't remember whether that was Australia or America, but I've seen a couple of reports of teachers actually saying, "Hang on, we don't want the parents listening in on what we're teaching their kids. That's an invasion of our privacy as teachers."
Yeah, that's fucking crazy, isn't it? Where are you right as a parent?
Who do they think they are?
My 6-year-old. So we were planning to homeschool before COVID started because the rhetoric getting pushed by the schools these days and the ideologies is not something that I want my kids to grow up learning. So hopefully, there are a few good things that will come out of this COVID. A lot of people have had more time to sit back and come up with to access information, come up with creative means of starting their businesses and stuff like that. The kids are missing out on social development, which is a major thing. They're not getting to experience sport and stuff like that. But one of the benefits that can come from the kids is maybe more people will homeschool. What we can teach our kids in the time at homeschool. So my kids, what we teach my kids in an hour to an hour and a half is more than they've learned in a day at homeschool. Plus we have sheep that they feed, eggs they collect, so their whole life becomes a school, and we have homeschool groups that we meet. So hopefully more people will take their kids out of the institutions that are raising these dumb fucking people and start to give the kids some real knowledge that will actually be beneficial to their lives, because at the moment they're coming out, going to uni and doing them courses you were talking about before, James, they come out with 8 years of school or 6 years of schooling and don't know a bloody thing. It's they live in this institutional bubble that they come out, they start voting and they give power to these fucking these tyrants.
This is the whole democratic machine. It's just a sausage factory to make voters who are just going to be happy little tax slaves and just continually vote for their own diminution of freedom.
Yeah, well, I think somebody once said, I can't remember who it was, but I think they once said, he who controls the youth, he who owns the youth controls the future. Remember someone who said that?
Wasn't it Lennon?
No, it was Hitler. Come on.
John Lennon, yeah, man, that guy was free.
Hitler said that. So he wasn't a good man, but he wasn't always wrong either. So he who controls the youth he who owns the youth controls the future, and that's what they're doing with our kids in these schools.
Well, that's right. Our enemies know very well it takes a couple of generations to really install a program fully in the psyche of the nation. And they've installed a self-destruct program into our nations. And so we now have the multi-generational project of eradicating that sort of
that thinking,
cognitive disease, that parasite that's in us. We have to eradicate it from ourselves and then teach our children to never take it in and to be resilient to it. And then over a few generations, we can really build back an identity and some strength and, have some choice in the future of our country instead of just being slaves to these vampires.
And realise the power we have as people, the power of not only our actions, the power of our thoughts and positive thinking and putting positive energy out to the world. You will get back what you put out there. So, if people start to do that, we will see, hopefully see something positive. That's all we're looking for.
Yeah, man, that's it. Love is the answer. It really is.
Love is the answer. I love you, Christians. Love is the answer.
Stephen Wells, he's been active in the chat tonight, also another contributor to the Uncuckables. He's asked you, James, have you got his book?
Not yet. I'm getting books quicker from America than from WA. So
maybe it has to go through. Crazy. It has to go through two weeks of quarantine.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they have to open it up and check that you're not smuggling Clive Palmer across the border.
His book is very skinny, which Clive Palmer.
Okay, so a quick spot check should do it.
I've seen the memes about if Clive Palmer tried to sneak across the border in a truck, it'd be obvious because there'd be a huge dent in the truck.
Could use a tank.
So James, tell us the latest about your show and rrtv.live.
Yeah, great. Well, we're launched and now it's just on the treadmill and the continuous process of development goes on, but we've got most of our champions from the original side have migrated across and we're bringing in new members. So anyone who wants to join our online Christ-centered community for, based and red-pilled Christians and friends. You don't have to be a believer to be there. We have agnostic and non-believing friends there. But if you're a friend to Christendom, we want you in the Champions of the Light. And it's rrtv.live/COTL for Champions of the Light. And we'll be shutting down the previous site soon and porting the championsofthelight.com domain there as well, of course. But we've got to do this whole thing in stages. But I've also, as many folks who watch Uncuckables would have noticed, I've launched a new bi-weekly show with my friend in San Diego, Mike Lowry. Not the same guy from Bad Boys, but still Mike Lowry nonetheless. And he's so we're doing a Wednesday morning and a Friday morning show, Australia time. It's called Champions of the Light, and it's focused on how to navigate the world as a man of Christ in these dark times, and how to prepare ourselves as men of Christ to be sovereign men of the future who can have an awesome gang of men around us so that we can have some freedom to make some of our own choices down the line. So really, it's just about encouragement and preparation of the mind, body, and spirit. So we'd love you to come and watch the show and also join the community.
Good stuff.
Yeah. And XYZ, as always, is doing its thing, still magically finding its way back onto Facebook.
Yeah, there's always a way. There's always a way around. It's why I never complain whenever I get a ban or being brought down. Basically, we know the battlefield that we're playing on, so we know that they're always going to try to find a way to jam our communications. But there's always a way around.
They haven't blacklisted any xyz.net.au links, because they do that for some websites such as proudboys.usa and censored.tv.
They wouldn't do it to XYZ because they're afraid of the Streisand effect, and they know that if people find out about the XYZ, it's over for them.
That's why they follow the motto, don't mention the XYZ.
Yeah, it's kind of like the journalistic version of mutually assured destruction, right?
Yeah, exactly. You don't want that trip bomb getting out there.
And of course, still publishing regular news and analysis on the Unshackled.net. Lucas Roses has been doing some fantastic work exposing the Marxists who are running for Victorian local government elections next month. I spoke last night on Wilms Front with City of Greater Dandenong Liberal Councillor Timothy Dark because it's most important, I've said it on this show before, local government elections, that you cast the most informed vote that you ever have, and make sure you don't accidentally vote for a Labor, Green, Communist. Because they might say nice motherhood, fluffy puppy stuff in their candidate bio, but that's not going to tell you who they really are. And of course, I'll be back for Trad Tasman Talk tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Melbourne time on the Unshackled's YouTube channel. Hopefully there's no more problems with the mic. I don't know why it keeps cutting out on Uncuckables. And, well, tomorrow is National Cabinet again, and we get the latest numbers in Victoria's COVID lotto. Which I hear the grand prize, if you guess the correct daily COVID numbers, the jackpot is a ticket to any other state in Australia.
Yeah. Do you get a penthouse suite in Surfers Paradise for a little?
It's a one-way ticket as well.
Yep. All right. Yep. Place your bids. Go for it. Get out if you can.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for your time tonight. Uncuckables will be back next week. Until next time, have a good night.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Dave.
Cheers,
Thanks, Jarrad.
Thanks, guys.
Good night,
AMAG
guys.
Project. There you go.
Nice.
The Uncuckables.